AITA for avoiding taking classes taught by professors with accents. I'm a college student who wears hearing aids, which help a lot, but I do still have diminished hearing. I struggle hearing in loud background noise or while talking to a person with an accent. When choosing classes, I pick professors with English names over foreign ones. Last week, while registering for classes next semester, I mentioned this to my friend, who, FWIW, is a native English-speaking white person. And he called me a racist asshole and hasn't spoken to me since. AITA? NTA. If you can't learn, there's no point in taking the class. Your friend sounds like a demagogue. Your friend sounds like a demagogue. A demagogue? Isn't that a kind of political leader who appeals to prejudices? I'm not sure that word fits here. Nah, because you genuinely need to hear the clearest possible voices. But I think you're going about it all wrong. An Anglo-sounding name doesn't guarantee a lack of an accent. And a non-Anglo-sounding name doesn't guarantee an accent. At all. This reminds me of a colleague who is professor in Germany. Her last name sounds extremely German. So students often just write her emails in German, assuming she's German, even though she only teaches her classes in English. She can't speak German, other than some simple phrases to get around. Upvoted because this is somewhat of a tough one. You're absolutely not an ass for wanting to make sure that you can clearly understand your professors, but doing it based on last name, rather than actually doing the groundwork and seeing if you're going to have trouble understanding them is pretty shitty. I'm going to say ish. Honestly. Because assuming someone has an accent because they have foreign names is a pretty big dick move. But your friend's reaction also seems entirely overblown. I struggle with accents too, and when I'm trying to learn a difficult subject it's double the work. I find a non-racist way to do this is to talk to other students that took the class with any professor and as if the professor had an accent. I also rely heavily on Rate My Professor for reviews on accents being an issue. I live in an extremely international city, so even white sounding names could be European and therefore have accents. Also, people with non-white names can definitely be born here and speak English as a native without an accent. My boyfriend's mom is a great example. Her last name is Asian heritage and her English is native since she was born here. I agree with comprehension being a concern, but you're going about it the wrong way. I have this problem too. And do also use RMP for info. But I've twice been caught in a class with a professor with a thick accent, and it has been a bitch to try to get through. Sometimes it's not even the accent, but just the different way of using the language when trying to explain something that I personally have issues with. Both were super smart professors and super helpful outside of class, though. Nah, but you may be depriving yourself of a better education by choosing classes based on this. How do you figure? There is no way to know who is a better teacher based on a name either. NTA. I don't have hearing issues and I did the same thing because my whole class failed a math course because no one in the class could understand a thing the professor was saying. You're paying money for these difficult classes, so whatever you have to do to make sure you understand it is necessary. It sucks and it makes you feel terrible, but ultimately you gotta do whatever it takes. Picking by name isn't the most effective manner I would do Rate My Professor or something. When you pay for classes, you are buying a service. I think everyone has the right to pick a service that works best for them. Some people don't care. Others check Rate My Professor. This person goes off of the last name. I don't think it's racism. Because there is no militant. I think this person is trying to get the most out of their education that they are paying for. NTA. NTA. I took a pre-calc class in college that was taught by a man with a horrifically thick accent. I'm bad at math to begin with and the accent made learning near impossible. I barely passed that class after learning an entire semester about matrices. I agree with other posters that ops going about this badly. But I'm surprised nobody's addressed the basic issue yet, that universities should not be hiring professors who can't speak clear, comprehensible English, or IC now. Farsi or French, or whatever the national language is. Teaching is about teaching, not knowledge. If you're the most qualified person in the world in knowledge and experience, but you can't pass that information along in a way the vast majority of your students can understand, you should be teaching at a university where you can. I've been in that situation myself and it sucks. Uni is way too expensive and time consuming to have a class wasted due to someone who is, however innocently, a poor communicator. It's a real problem. That's a tough call. I'm leaning toward AITA because of the way you're going about this, which is judging based on name alone. Doing that, you're eliminating many potential professors who might be non-white or non-American, but speak English without an accent. It's always valuable to have instructors with different viewpoints and backgrounds, in addition to the fact that it's generally shitty to be specifically excluding them. My suggestion would be to talk to your school's accessibility department and work with them. They can hopefully help you find professors that you'll be able to understand without having to judge based on name. That said, if they can't or aren't willing to help you with this reasonable accommodation, at that point I probably wouldn't judge you for continuing with your method. Other reasonable accommodations could include requiring the instructor to provide the text of any lectures, not just the slides, so that you can hear/understand what they said in class. Definitely talk to your student services department or accessibility office. NTA, but as others have already said, there are probably better ways of getting the results you seek. Usually Retema Professor and things like that have a section for accents, if that helps. Yeah. NTA but op should have used Retema Professor instead of assuming, based on a name. It is kind of stupid. But the friend definitely overreacted emo. 1. There are lots of accessibility options in most education facilities, including but not limited to the professor being required to provide you notes on their lecture beforehand, another student being given extra credit to take notes for students with accessibility needs, getting permission to record the lecture, and many others for these sorts of situations. Because sometimes taking a class you have trouble with from an accessibility standpoint can't be avoided, talk to your institution's accessibility instead. It's much more effective. 2. You base it off foreign looking names, not actual student testimony or meeting the professors yourself, making it more about race than realistic expectation of accessibility barriers. People with foreign names can be English monolingual. People with English looking names can have thick accents. Now, I think your friend is right that the way you go about it is racist. But you also aren't an asshole for trying to take classes you can actually learn in despite your bad method of doing so. Retema Professor. Com is the way to go, my dude. You can look up any professors. Saved my life multiple times. I feel like the title of this post is wrong. Should be AITA for avoiding classes with professors with non-Anglican names. Name does not indicate an accent. You're operating on totally flawed logic, as almost everyone in the comments has pointed out already. For future reference, sites like Rate My Professor can provide better insight. Or talk to people at your university for help picking appropriate classes. No judgment. I don't think you are totally wrong really. But use Retema Professor or something instead of just their last name. Do your due diligence first, as all other commenters have said. If you are doing that, falling back on their foreign name is not the worst way to weed out the heavy accented ones. That's what I'd say as well. Thick accents are almost always mentioned on RMP. A white person with a general white last name could easily be a foreigner. Can't just assume. For example, I've heard plenty of foreign name professors who were American and spoke plain English. No accent. I've also had white name professors who did have an accent. Not casting judgment, but offering a suggestion. Email professors before registering for their courses and explain to them your difficulties with hearing. Ask if you can meet with them in person. Then try having a conversation in order to gauge how well you can make out what they are saying. I highly doubt a professor would judge you for this. University courses cost a fair amount of money. Hey. I'm a fellow person with an auditory disorder. This is a grey matter. AITA and NTA. I totally understand not wanting to take a professor with a strong accent. It can diminish your overall learning experience. But you're basing it off foreign names. While it does apply to some cases, names should never matter. Someone could have the last name Fernandez and be the whitest person ever. And another person could have the last name Smith and have a heavy accent. I suggest maybe emailing the professors beforehand and asking about their accent or talking to your advisor. If you enjoyed this video, then hit the like button and subscribe if you'd like to see more future videos.